Welcome to MOMFIT with Joe Peters. I am super excited to have you here back. I love having you here every week. This show is hosted on the Spanglish World Network and the H.E.R Network on the single TV channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download the single TV app in the respective app stores in iOS and Android devices. When you are downloading, make sure to rate us and leave us a comment. The app is free. And if you don't want to deal with an app, please know that Single TV is also available in Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV Stick, Roku, and Roku Stick in all the smart TVs since 2016. Now, if you are here is because you are a mom to be, a new mom of one, two, three, four children, and you want to win the marathon of motherhood without burnout. And that is why we are here. So if you have any questions, any challenges, any problems around your life in motherhood, please make sure to follow me on social media, Instagram, and Facebook and send me a message. I handle my own social media. And if I don't know how to help you, I will bring an expert like Suze to come to the show every Friday and we will talk about the topics that are important to you. And that is how we can have it all and win the marathon of motherhood without burnout. So I am super, super excited to have Suze here because it is a full circle. Suze is a dear friend of mine. She was my coach. I've been knowing her for since 2019. I think that we met in Oslo.
Yeah, 18, I think, maybe even. Yeah.
Yeah, even. Suze had a fantastic story, and her goal is to help woman, everybody, but especially woman, into empowering into that um financial freedom and how to. I will let her to tell a little bit more of that, but we are going to be talking about what it means to go through all the things that are life, being a mom, having a business, keeping your relationships healthy while also keeping them all together. And sometimes we want to go, I call it the negative positivity, and is we want to tell everybody like everything is pink and rainbows. And I think that sometimes we need people like Suze that said like, no,
It
rainbows poop and there is a lot of shed in the road. So welcome, Suze. Why we don't start a little bit with your story that I know that is fantastic, and how that story bring you into doing the work that you do now and
yes.
helping the way that you do.
I am so, so happy to hear, Joanna. We've met, let me see. Oh, is my sound still all right? My sound should be all right, right? Yeah. Okay, so we've met in 2018 or something in a seminar together, and it was amazing. The interesting thing is, if you look at motherhood and running a business, so I am 49 right now, turning 50 in October. And I started my business exactly 25 years ago. So I am turning 50, my business is turning 25. Um, when I started my business, I had no kids in sight. I was 25. I had no experience. I couldn't do anything. I didn't know anything. And I was just not suicidal anymore. So I was kind of my last idea of, you know what? I Now, this is a kind of a horror story, but it's not horror. I was really lost due to my childhood. I really didn't know how to live anymore. And at 23, I literally thought for 2 years, I don't know what I'm doing in this life. And then at 25, I decided, you know what? Either I step out or I stay. But if I stay, I need to commit. So I said to God, and if you don't believe in God, call it the universe or whatever you want to call it. I said to God, I'm staying, but I'm not staying to do the survival thing that I see everybody doing because I don't get it. I don't understand what people are trying to do in the sense of find a job. I didn't understand all the conditions that everybody was placing on life, like find a job, find a relationship, cope with this, cope with that, do this, do that. And then if you do it all right, then you'll have a successful life. And I couldn't get it to the point where I thought killing myself was a good idea. And I thought, okay, I'll stay, but I'm going to figure out what I need to do in this life, not what everybody else is trying to do. So I said, I'll stay and figure out my path. And if I can do that, it's worthwhile. That's how I started my business, not from a vision or an idea of, yeah, I can make money. I just didn't see any other reason to stay in this planet. That actually went pretty well until I had kids, which makes it really amazing to talk here on this MomFit show because I'd never planned on having kids. I didn't plan against it either. I just got pregnant out of the blue. Literally out of the blue because I actually thought I was infertile. So then getting pregnant was a present, but it was also kind of a holy shit because two things changed. One, to me, and I'm not blaming anybody who thinks about this differently, but to me, the door to death was permanently closed after that. Because with a baby, that option of, you know what, if I don't find the way, I'll just go ahead and kill myself again, that door was closed. So I had to figure it out. That's one. The second one was that the way I was working in my business was all around my own energy, all around working 16-hour days, 7 days a week for 3 months and then taking 2 months off. Yeah, that doesn't work with a baby on your lap. In case you haven't figured it out yet. so so all of a sudden I had to figure the stuff out that I was refusing to figure out at 25. And I had to understand, how can I do it my way and in a way that's good for my baby and be happy and not kill myself. And so all the childhood trauma started to surface that I pressed down all the reasons and went into full mode of, okay, I need to survive, I need to stay alive, I need to make all these things work. And I always had this thought, yeah, I'm not going to make it work for my baby so that my baby is happy and I'm unhappy. I'm not going to go back into a survival mode. I'm going to figure out the way that it really works for me and be the only example that I want to be for my baby. So this is kind of my story in a heartbeat.
And I think that is lovely and goes into the first topic that we're going to be talking about because, again, I think that one of the responsibilities is getting out of that social standard of, especially around motherhood, everything is shine and everything is beautiful, and
Mhm.
then we are getting pregnant on this ideal of a stable relationship and two parents are involved, and then the birth is perfect and all of that, that as more we know that is not the reality for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But before we go there, because one of your topics of talking, and I know that you believe this, and that is what I was thinking into talking about this on your story about pregnancy and how you meet your current husband and how
Yeah.
that was so challenging. You believe that everything is helping us to grow,
Yeah.
especially the hard things. But
Exactly.
before we go there, I want you to talk a little bit about your phrase. I always ask our guests to give us a phrase that is their favorite phrase or is their um, um, most deep reflection. And I love yours. And yours is, will you stay in prison if the door of the jail was open? Tell me a little bit about that one. Why that one is the best one that you choose? Why you choose that one? And then how that connects with this that we are talking about in our journey for motherhood.
Yes, thank you, Joe. Yeah, so that phrase is literally painted on my bathroom door. It is on my office. It is in my seminar room. It is everywhere. I even have it physically on a tile. I don't know if that's an American thing, but in the Netherlands, you put it on a tile and you place that tile somewhere in the kitchen. And and I literally have a kitchen tile with that phrase on it because what I realized at 25 when I decided to stay and at 32 again when my daughter was 2. So I have 2 kids. The oldest is now 19, by the way. So when I got pregnant, that's 19 years ago. By now, the 2 kids are almost leaving the house. But what I realized in those crucial moments was that I had been trying to fix all the things outside of me, hoping that if everything was fixed outside of me, then I would feel permission to show up the way I wanted to show up. And I call that negotiating with God. I was constantly trying to say, hey, if I do this and that and that and that, then will I be able to be happy? If I make all these things happen, will I then get a break? Or will I then be allowed to do this? And I was constantly looking for a reward from life or from God or from something, not me, apparently. Um, um, yeah, kind of acknowledging that I am supposed to be here or whatever bullshit we make up, right? And what I realized is that my life often felt like a prison. It often really did. It felt like a prison at 23. It felt like a prison when the father of my child, when I was pregnant, left me 8 weeks into that pregnancy. That felt like, oh my God, now I have to figure it all out on my own. And I need to make this money and I need to keep this house and I need to take care of my baby. Then I met my husband at 8 months in that pregnancy. And then I realized, oh my God, now I have a baby to take care of, and a husband, and I have to make all these things happen. And I always kind of, in hindsight, looked at it as if that was a prison. I wasn't aware of it, by the way, but I was constantly trying to solve things and constantly trying to look at them like if I can solve them, then I'll be happy. And what I realized at a certain point was that the door was always open, that the prison wasn't outside, it was in me. And I was staying in that prison, trying to fix the external world, not understanding that that whole prison was inside of me to begin with. The door was open, I could walk out, but the walking out was actually more uncomfortable staying in. We all have this idea around, if I ask you, for instance, Joe, if I ask you, well, if the door is open in a prison, would you walk out? Your first impulse would probably be, of course not, I'd leave. But then the interesting thing at a certain point was that I was asking myself, so if I look at the world, nobody is forcing me to stay in this situation. Apparently, I'm choosing this. Apparently, there's something inside of me because I've moved 14 times in my life. I'm very good at one thing, and that is, this is actually a kind of a sidetrack, but I'm very good at changing everything all the time. And I was realizing one of my biggest talents, I call it today. At that point, I call it a curse. But my biggest talents is to erase my life and start over again. Kind of like, okay, reboot, like in the good place, bad place, right? I'm just going to reboot, call it a day, start over. I'm really good at that. I lost everything 3 times. I'm really good at rebooting. And I thought that is a problem. But at a certain point, I started to sit down with myself thinking, why am I constantly rebooting? And then I realized that's not a problem. It's something I'm really good at. I'm really good at erasing all the things and starting over. But why am I doing that? Why am I calling that a problem when it is something I'm really good at? I thought that's not what you should be doing. I thought you should be stable. You should be in one place. And then I thought, no, I'm actually really good at doing the reboot thing. So then, if the prison door is open, why am I not allowing myself to just leave and paint a new picture for myself, change my image, change my vision, change the vision of who I really am? I'm not a problem to be solved. I'm actually a beautiful person. And once I realized I am not a problem, I'm a beautiful person. And what I want is something I can want. It's not a problem to other people that I'm here. I'm a gift. Once I started to incorporate these things, then I stopped fighting the external world. And then I started to embrace the way I want to live and the way I feel fit living. But one of the things, for instance, that my prison wall was consisting of is, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people can resonate with this, is I had this idea around I can follow my own truth if the rest of the people around me are happy. That was one of my big prison walls. I can only live my truth if everyone is happy. Well, that's never going to happen. There's always going to be somebody unhappy. But if I didn't fix their happiness, I couldn't live my truth. Well, good luck with that. So my prison wall was consisting of other people's unhappiness. Yeah, that's too big.
And I think that that is so important for us to discuss in our marathon to motherhood, because especially for us females and moms, I think that that is being brainwashed on us with the maternal instinct, and then that is your duty, and then you need to get
Yeah.
yourself last, and then you need to make sure that everybody else at home is good and happy, and then after that you can even start thinking about that. I love how you put it, like I was only allowed to get room for myself and explore who I was after everybody else
Exactly.
was happy. And the reality is, like you said, it's impossible. Even if they are your kids and your partner, or only your kids, I think that that is a unfair responsibility to put in our shoulders, as moms, to say that we are responsible for their happiness.
And
um
it's even worse. There's even some other thing that I'm pretty sure you can appreciate. And that is that it's not even about what they are asking us. No, it is our idea around their happiness. So for instance, I met my husband 8 months into my pregnancy. So we had a baby 30 days after we met. For a lot of people, that's hard to comprehend. I hope it's hard to comprehend, by the way. But we had a baby 30 days after we met. So I never asked him if he was happy. I just assumed that he was unhappy with the situation. He was embracing it. He was not a problem. He was not having problems with it. I thought this was a problem for him. So it's often our own ghosts in our own mind that we're assuming and placing on other people, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that projection of our, and I know that you are big into inner child and in childhood, because you are also a therapist, a trauma specialist. Um, is how we reflect all those fears from that were not healed from our childhood. And then with that one, let's gonna go into how the hardest things are actually allowing us to grow, and
Yes.
how that is connected to when we start getting into motherhood. Because I think that there is a huge click there, that when we are in motherhood is when we surface a lot of those traumas that we had growing up, because we are almost reliving them.
Yeah.
And instead of just going through that in an unconscious way, it's a beautiful opportunity to grow. So the hard things are a wake up call for us to say, oh, this is showing me that I need to grow, that I need to heal. And that healing probably is going back to some initial childhood traumas.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I was writing about it. So my husband and I today also give relationship coaching. It took us 19 years to get there, right? So we had a baby 30 days after we met. Um, a year and a half later, Rosalie was born, our second baby. So in 2 years, we met. We had two kids. We never spent one day without kids. We moved to the other side of the country and he lost his job. And I was a breadwinner. So as idyllic as it sounds, having a person embrace your past, embrace your child, taking care of you, and being a stay at home dad, that was not a really easy scenario for either of us because he all of a sudden was a stay at home dad without ever having a thought around, do I want kids? Um, he lost his job, he lost his whole sense of purpose and his whole sense of ability. and I was a breadwinner. Now, I was very capable of doing everything on my own for myself before I met him, but I wasn't too good at committing to a relationship, and I had a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear around relationships. Now, the interesting thing is after 2 years, we were in a pretty dramatic place. I see a lot this is a very special story, I know, but I see a lot of couples not navigating that shift of motherhood easily. Because all of a sudden, there's babies, there's other people, there's parents, there's responsibilities, and we go through the chores kind of like, you know what? Let's divide the chores, but how are you taking care of your relationship? Now, if you're not consciously navigating that, things will come up. With us, this was a pressure cooker that made us kind of press everything down, and Yako and I both were in a place of, you know what? It's not about me. I'm trying to make him happy. But without me knowing it, he was trying to make me happy. So he was trying to take care of me. I was trying to take care of him. We were both completely unhappy, burned out, terrified, and after 2 years on the verge of divorce. Now, I saw it coming, kind of. I was already a trauma therapist, and I thought we could have seen this happening. This is not a random surprise. So I wanted to work on it. But my husband was kind of like, if we can't make it through the first 2 years, what are we doing here? Why should we stay together? So when I said, let's go into therapy, his reaction was not, yeah, let's work on it. His reaction was anger, frustration. He was like, what? And now, so we messed up, and now you suggest we do something about it? He was completely angry. So my whole, and that led to me feeling like, okay, so it's my fault. This is not what he said. This is my assumption was like, okay, so it's my fault we're in this place because I brought a baby into this whole scenario in the first place. And now he is thinking I need to fix it. And I felt the entire weight of the relationship, of the child's happiness, of my own life. I felt the weight of all of it on me. I felt like, okay, now I need to fix it. And I felt that he was not willing and not able to do anything, and I felt that he was excluding me. Is this a scenario you can relate to, Joe, in any way?
Absolutely. I think that is so important what you were saying into showing up for a relationship.
Yeah.
And I was actually smiling because I was saying, like, I mean, we are, my son is 3 years old now. And after not sleeping for almost 2 years, the last several months, what we decided to survive was that we each was going to live in a room. So I went from living 7 years with my partner, just the two of us, to facing my biggest fear, that was that we were sleeping in separate rooms. And it was just because we split nights with the baby. And then the night that I had the baby, he needs to sleep all night for work. And
Yes.
so it's all of that that we can go into the motions. And I laugh because you were saying about a 2 year, or after 2 year mark. Of course, your case is extreme because after 2 years we were running out of gas with only one child. After 2 years you were just getting to know each other, had a pregnancy, had two babies, lost a job. But
Yeah.
it reminds me of something that I did with my husband, actually, that I hear, I don't remember where, but I thought that was brilliant. And that was the 2 year contract. And that
Yeah.
was when we were pregnant. I hear about that. And there is a movement around the world saying, when you are pregnant, especially if it's the first baby, and actually it doesn't matter if it's the first baby or the third, because you never know how your babies are going to be different. I want you to talk about your experience with your two
Yes,
kids because they were so
I
close to
will.
each other. But it is an agreement before the baby's born that you're not going to even talk about divorce in the
Exactly.
first 2 years of the baby's life. Why? Because women are full of hormones, and it takes, the latest studies are saying that it takes, can take up to 7 years
Yeah.
because you both are adjusting, because the reality is you lost yourself as a couple because now both of you are trying to keep that baby alive plus
Yes.
keeping your own sanity. So I was loving when you were saying that, because probably 19 years ago that was not a big deal, or it's still not a big deal now, but even less 19 years ago. So I can imagine and I can see how, if you
Yeah.
don't have that awareness, you are like, oh, this was a mistake, we should split up. No,
That's
you should not
understanding.
split up. You are just going into a storm.
Exactly. So then Yucko was like, I'm not into asking help. And I said, okay. I went inside myself and I thought, okay, so I can do two things. I can feel like, oh my God, I am going to be lonely in this relationship the rest of my life. And that's just my burden and I need to carry it. Or I can do the thing that I am trained to do, go into therapy. So I thought, you know what? If my husband doesn't want to go into relationship therapy, that's fine, but I'm committed and I'm going to therapy. So I went into couples counseling on my own and I went to a relationship therapist. And this was a beautiful thing because one of the things I learned was he was not excluding me. I was excluding him. That was the world upside down. My first was, what? What? No, 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 no. I am the one asking for help. I am the one thinking we should go into therapy. I am the one who is doing the responsible thing. He is leaving me.
He's the problem, not me.
Exactly. Yeah, it took a kind of an ego breakdown to look at it from another way. But what was really happening there was that I was so used to taking all the responsibility on my own, doing everything, fixing his problems all the time. And I know so many women who can relate to this. If you can relate to this, by the way, put it in the chat or reach out to me on LinkedIn or anywhere. Um, but there was this, I was so used to taking care of everybody's problems that I was trying to take care of his problems on his behalf. And I was waiting for him to reward me. But I wasn't listening to him. I wasn't seeing him. I was completely unwilling and unable at that point to see his frustration and his loneliness. So, yeah, there was a lot triggered in me. There was a lot of things I wanted to communicate about, but I wasn't inviting him in. I was pushing him, dragging him in, being frustrated and angry with him. Are we still there? Yeah, okay,
Yes,
yeah, I'm
yes, yes,
sorry.
yes.
Yeah, something happened on my computer. Okay, we're still there. So I was dragging him in, being angry at him, trying to pull him in, trying to, well, not beat him in, but you get the I can be quite temperamental. So it was like, you need to do this, but I wasn't inviting him in. I wasn't showing my own vulnerability. I wasn't showing my fear. I wasn't saying, hey, this is the big lesson here. I was saying, and this is a lesson that took me years to learn, by the way. It sounds easy, but it wasn't at the time. I wanted to be loved unconditionally. Now, I was very aware that I wanted to love him unconditionally. And what was I doing? I was placing a million conditions on the situation so that he could love me unconditionally and I could love him unconditionally. And I said, okay, I'm very aware of the fact that I'm trying to put all these conditions in place so that we can find unconditional love. I know loving you unconditionally means that I need to love this side where I feel excluded, where I feel alone. I know I need to love it. But there's things I want to share with you that I feel unsafe sharing. That's not your fault, but we need to open that up. That means that I need a therapist in the room while I'm doing that, because otherwise, I don't know how to do it. It's not that you need to work on anything. You probably don't, and maybe you do, and maybe I see correctly. It's not about that. If I want to fix my part, I need you to watch while I do it. That's what he said yes to. So this growing in the middle of the shit, that meant me facing my own shit and inviting him in. That's
And I think that you are putting such a two things that I want everybody to take note in, and that is, with the exception of narcissists and mental and physical abuse, that is another topic that we are not talking. If it's just relationship, healthy relationship issues, I believe like you that if you start working in yourself, even if your partner doesn't want to participate, just you working on yourself almost guarantee a huge improvement that
Exactly.
will open the door for even more improvement. And
Exactly.
the other one is, we have this taboo and this fear about therapists and a counselor, and we have this concept of, oh, when we ask for help means that we fail in our marriage. And I believe that that is why we wait until sometimes it's too late to ask for help.
True.
So then by the time that we could do the therapist, the problems are so huge that sometimes cannot be solved, or it takes a lot more time. And I agree with you on the power of going through the problems. Like, I have my therapist, and we were having some issues at home, and I told my husband Justin, I was like, we need to go to a couples therapy. And he was like, well, he's adult, so he was like, okay. And it was amazing because while we were being arguing for so long without being able to hear each other and get to a plan, we were able to get a game plan in an hour therapy, because having that mediator there that don't have a side, that is
Yes.
able to moderate, that is able to do all of that, is magical. And I actually think that every couple should have a therapist in their back of their pocket when they are having
I
consistent
agree.
issues, to say, hey, time out. We are not getting anywhere here. Let's gonna get somebody in our team to help us. It's not that we fail, it's that sometimes we need additional support.
I want to even take that one step further. It's not that we need a therapist when there are issues. It is even in a place of when two people meet, we tend to think the two together complement each other and make a whole. That is bullshit. There are two whole people meeting, sharing space. But then one person has a lot of pain in their back pocket, and the other person has so too. Now, when we fall in love, what happens is that we tend to think, oh, with you, I will never have to feel that pain again. And the other person thinks the same. Well, with you, now I never have to feel that pain again. But in that moment, and we call that falling in love, right? So in that moment, we allow ourselves to open up to divine love, which is flowing through us. And then we start to think, well, I can feel this because of the other person. That's not true. You can feel that because you feel that. It has nothing to do with the other person. It's you deciding to open up all your channels for it. So then at a certain point, when practical stuff hits, we start to close those channels and then we blame the other person. But they didn't close those channels, we did. So then the other person is the best person in the world to show you where you are opening and closing and how you're doing that. Except they're not a therapist, so they won't subtitle this whole process. They'll just annoy the shit out of you. So your spouse or your partner or whatever you want to call it is the ideal person to show you how to deal with old childhood trauma. It's the ideal person to show you how you can allow more love. It's not that they give you love. It's not like you need to give me love. That's entitlement. No, it's you show me the way to love flowing through my system. And the more we allow ourselves to understand how these channels work inside of us, the bigger we can grow together. And then we help each other constantly grow into bigger and better versions of who we were meant to be.
I love that. And with that, I think that I would love to hear your definition of what unconditional love means. Because I think that society is being using the term in an irresponsible way, where unconditional love is putting ourselves left, is because I'm loving you unconditionally, then I can forget all these things. I want to hear what unconditionally love means to you, and then how we can, as moms, start applying that unconditional love, how we can unconditionally love our partners, our children, and I will believe even more important, how we can unconditionally love or learn to love ourselves.
Yeah, and I love the way you put it because it is the other way around. It is unconditionally love ourselves and then share that with the others. What's beautiful, I never thought of a definition, but I'll explain. So for me, I have this idea, and it's probably not the only way, but becoming a parent is the toughest lesson we can get in unconditional love because we love these kids unconditionally and they're unable to receive it fully. My children are now 17 and 18. I have only now begun to understand how unconditionally my parents really loved me. Because as kids, we're like, yeah, right. Yeah, you were supposed to be there for me. You were not. And they don't consider you human. And they're not supposed to consider you human. You're divine. You created them. You should be able to carry all of it. And I can now see my parents didn't mend half of the things that I thought were traumatizing in that way. So so having kids means allowing unconditional love flow through your system without anybody on the receiving end of it. Well, they are on the receiving end of it, but they're misinterpreting that all the fucking time. At 3, they're not yet. Wait, it will come, Joanna. It's called puberty. And the beauty is that what we need to do as parents is allow the unconditional love of the universe to flow through us without conditions. But in the meantime, create a safe environment for the other person to just be who they are. Now, unconditional love to me, for instance, Jaco and I made very different marriage vows than most people do. So the traditional vows are I vow to love you until death do us part, right? I will take care of you. I will make sure you're happy. I will now be so humble that I will make sure that this relationship is more important than any of us. I kind of agree with it, but we said it differently. We said, I will take such deep care of myself and who I am that I will be the most loving person you could possibly be around, and I will share that with you. Meaning
Mm.
that I will put myself first to a degree that I will not compromise on your behalf, because if I compromise on your behalf, then I'm asking you to play a smaller game and be grateful to me because, oh my holy goodness, I compromised for you and now you are entitled to the same thing. That, by the way, is the biggest trap of marriage, right? I did this for you, so now I owe you. Oh my God. That is, I've been there. You've been there. All of us have been there. But because I did something for Yucko doesn't mean he owes me. It means I did it for him and I need to be in a place of I did this for you. And by doing it, I already received. So in a relationship, we need to give for the sheer pleasure of giving.
And I love that because so the first one is I was hearing one Tibetan monk talking about that and say if you are giving because you are expecting something, even if it's a thank you back, you are
Yeah.
not giving, you are doing a transaction.
That's
And
taking. That's taking. Yeah.
and then I will love all the moms. It was so profound what Sue said. If you have a partner, I will invite you to review and decide if you want to renew your vows in that way. And then I want everybody to start thinking how the world will change if you do those vows with your children. If
Yes.
when you have your baby in the hospital or you are pregnant, instead of saying, I'm going to protect you and I'm going to love you forever and I'm going to put you first and I'm going to make all the things that we want to say because of society and all constraints and our own wounds, we do that vow. I absolutely love it is I vowed that I will take care of myself
Yes.
in such a big way that the only thing that you have from me is unconditional love that is overflowing from every millimeter of my body. I think that if we all today in 2024 make that vow, not only with our partners, but with our children, I think that in one generation, the world will change
It
because
would.
we will just take care of us in a way. Because I also love what you are being repeating several times during the show, and is love is not something that you do, love is not something that you achieve, love is not something that you make, love is something that you allow to flow.
Yes.
So it is there, it is there. It's
It
almost
is there.
I think that I hear you saying this analogy before. It's almost like electricity.
Yeah.
Like electricity is there.
Yeah.
It's up to you if you switch the thingy in your house on and off.
Exactly.
If it's on, the light is on. If it's off, it's off. Doesn't mean the electricity is not
Exactly
there.
that. It's exactly that. The interesting thing is my kids are now 17 and 18, and especially I have a 17-year-old daughter. Now, you don't have a daughter and she's not 17, but you have been a 17-year-old daughter. 17-year-old daughters are practicing letting go of you, meaning that they're not testing you. They're trying to understand who they are. So they're constantly fighting with you, constantly giving you a hard time. And they need that because it's safe enough to do that with you. You need to love yourself to such a degree that it is safe enough for them to do that. No matter what they do. I always tell my daughter, I love myself so deeply. There's nothing you can tell me that will make me doubt myself. I have strong boundaries with my kids. And I always tell them, you can fight those boundaries. That's fine. I love myself enough to have you fight them. And there are certain things that are not happening in this house, not here, not on my watch. And I love myself enough to let you be angry about that and not hate myself over that. You can get angry with me. It's safe here. Do that. There's nothing in the world you can possibly do to make me fall out of love with myself for that. Be angry. Go ahead. Now that evokes anger, by the way, but that's a good thing.
And I think that one of the things as we start wrapping up that is important there is, and as a therapist, and you are a coach, you are a mentor, you are a therapist, you are a. I normally said that everybody should have a little Suze on their pocket.
That is sweet.
But let's go talk a little bit about those emotions for ourselves and for our children, because especially for when we grow up in a place where it's not safe to have all those emotions, then we feel very uncomfortable with our children or our partner expressing them. But I love how you said, like, it is safe to be angry. Actually, I will even tell you what you think about this. I think that is necessary to learn to be comfortable and to know how anger feels in a safe
Yes.
environment. So when you are an adult, you don't get into a lot of other trouble because the only emotion that you were able to feel at home was happiness and being good. So
Yeah.
how we can start exploring that range of emotions
Yes.
in our journey on ourselves and with our families.
Yeah, and it's crucial what you say. So when I was young, my mom had a Second World War trauma. So it's not her fault at all, but she could not deal with our emotions because that was terrifying for her. So it wasn't safe for her if we had a lot of emotions because that triggered things in her that she couldn't deal with. So she would make sure we stopped feeling. And she did that in ways that in today's world would not be considered good parenting. I don't blame her for that, but it taught me that my emotions not able to feel them. So then when my babies were young, specifically when my kids were babies, today a lot less because now I've grown a lot. My kids would have tantrums or outbursts or anger, and I could feel all this "Stop it!" that my mom used to feel flowing through me. Now, instead of act that out on my kid, what I did was I closed my eyes in the moment And I visualized the healthy, soul filled version and healed version of my mom behind me, holding me while I was processing my own emotions. Now, you could also do this with your partner if you have a safe relationship. Tell him, be with me, hold me. I need to feel this. It is all right for me to feel this. Let me feel this because I am healing, because otherwise I will accidentally take it out on the kids. This is what I did. So I would let my son, he had really big fits when he was very young. And I would say, okay, you go ahead and cry. And I'm going to process whatever I need to process because you're crying. And my husband would often lay behind me, just hold me. And I would just say, it's all right. Let me cry. Let me cry. And then I would hold Benjamin. And this is such a profound and beautiful way of doing it. But we need to be held as moms. We need to find, and if you can't do this, find girlfriends. This is where we have girlfriends for. Find therapists. Yako and I have a relationship group where we do this with couples. That you need to find people who can hold you, because these this is one thing that's really annoying for me. A lot of people are saying, yeah, I need to fix all these things before I have kids. You cannot, because it will only show up when the kids are there. So you need to find ways of knowing that what the kids are triggering in you, it's not wrong, it's not bad, it's supposed to happen. The kids are seeing you heal while they're growing, and that's beautiful.
And I love that because that is one of those things that can trigger a lot of guilt on all of us, especially people that are being going into this self-awareness, because we wish we didn't make any of those mistakes, but we need to do it so we can heal. So I love your image of closing your eyes and seeing a healed, supportive version of the mom that we had,
Yes.
holding us into those emotions and saying, hey, you know what? This feels really uncomfortable, but it's actually a good emotion. And what the emotion of anger can tell you. Suze, I cannot believe that we are getting into the end of the episode. If you had one final thought for all the moms around the world that are watching us today, what that will be, and if they are curious about learning more about you, of the group that you have with Jacko, of your beautiful story of healing and how you change something that could be very painful for a lot of moms
Yeah.
into a beautiful life, how they can reach out to you, how they can connect with you.
So they can connect with me on LinkedIn or on Facebook. I don't know where to drop my links, but they can connect with me on LinkedIn or on Facebook, and just reach out to me. I always answer my own messages. There's one thing I need you to know, and that is that all of this is normal. The whole idea of it takes a village isn't because it takes a village because the child needs so much. It takes a village to stand around the mom. And it is safe to do that. And it is safe to allow other moms in. When I was breastfeeding, in the middle of the night, crying, feeling overwhelmed, I would visualize a connection from my heart to the heart of all the moms around the world who were sitting there feeling terrified and lonely at the same time. It takes a village around the mom. Allow yourself that village.
Oh my God, I got goosebumps, and I don't think that we could close this episode in a better way. The village is not for the baby, the village is for the mom. Please go and follow Suze in Facebook. You can find her in the, as her name is in the screen, Suze Maclaine Pont. Facebook, LinkedIn, send her a message into what you love the most about the show. We will put her links also in all the platforms so you can have access to her. And then, Sus, thank you so much for being here. What an amazing blessing it's been. Go ahead and follow Sus, follow me, Joe Unicorn Coach. And remember that this show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please go and check out www.spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it.